My guests today are McKinley and Mackenzie Benson and their Oscar qualified animated short film, Two Ships. Now, McKinley Benson is a filmmaker and alumnus of the Savannah College of Art and Design, graduating summa cum laude with a Bachelor of Fine Arts degree in film and television. He is a director, producer, and writer responsible for dozens of narrative shorts, television pilots, and documentaries, screening at Oscar qualifying festivals around the world and garnering 3 Emmy Awards. Now, in 2017, McKinley co founded the independent production studio Room 330, dedicated to high quality, storyteller driven projects. Now, over the course of his career, he has had the pleasure of working with companies such as Netflix, Amazon Studios, as well as Walt Disney Studios, Paramount, and XYZ Films. Now, Two Ships marks McKinley's first animated film, which he is grateful to be producing in partnership with the Oscar nominated Cola Animation. Now, Mackenzie Benson is a photographer and alumnus of the Academy of Art University in San Francisco, graduating with Bachelor of Fine Arts degree in photography. Now, she is currently working as a freelance photographer, retoucher, and color specialist, and her portfolio combines soft, elegant tones with bold contrast, capturing the unique character of her subjects in both color and black and white. And this sensibility extends to the visual style of their film Two Ships, which marks Mackenzie's first venture into filmmaking and animation. So let's welcome filmmakers McKinley and Mackenzie Benson and their animated short film Two Ships to the show. Well, welcome to both of you and the puppy.
Thank you so much for having us. Thank you for the lovely intro. We
Well,
appreciate
you're
it.
very, very welcome. Well, now I understand that the film Two Ships is personal to both of you, so I'd like to hear both sides of this story.
Yeah, absolutely. It's super personal to us. It's a story that's based on our relationship and our experience of working opposite schedules and, attempting to maintain that connection during the work week. So the idea came to us during a time when we were living the experience of the characters in the film. And I was working overnights from like 3 a.m. to 3 p.m. And Mackenzie was working like her sort of 9 to 5 job. And during the week, it felt like we really had no like meaningful face-to-face interactions. And so the weekends became so precious to us. Those 48 hours of Saturday and Sunday became everything. And that was the only time we actually we got to have any connection. And so Two Ships was inspired from that time in our lives. And it's an experience that I think a lot of people go through and a lot of couples go through. So it was a story that was important for us to tell.
Yeah, and we have been together for 10 years now. We met in high school and we did long distance through college when I went to school in San Francisco and McKinley was in Atlanta. And we got engaged in 2021 and moved in together and then began working opposite schedules. So I've always, McKinley's made so many films and I've always been kind of his sounding board, but we've never actually worked together. So when he told me this story, we were eating dinner and he acted it out in our kitchen. And I was just so touched and moved because it was so him. And a lot of his films before were like horror or sci-fi or something that was just really large. And this was just such a small, simple story that was so true to who he is as a person. And it was so moving to me. So I was like, hey, I actually want to work on this with you. How can we do this together? Since it's about us, I feel like I should be part of it too. So
Yeah.
we kind of learned the animation world together and he kind of held my hand through producing, and it was really, really fun to be able to apply my photography skills to animation.
Well, I love the simplicity of the film, but how difficult was it to keep the relationship from sinking, so to speak? But within the silence, how to make sure both of you were heard?
Yeah, I think like in the film, the characters kind of leave little sticky notes for each other. That was a real thing that we would do because other than like texting or just staying connected via the internet when I'm at my job and she's at hers, like we would leave little sticky notes and try to clean up after each other or just do little like acts of kindness for each other to hopefully like make the other person's day a little bit brighter and have like even though we're not like physically interacting, it felt like pieces of us were in a way. And so that idea was what we wanted to represent with the film. And through animation, you're able to do really cool things, like have these two characters at different times of day existing in the same frame and stuff like that. So yeah, we brought a lot of ourselves and a lot of our experience into the project.
Well, this is your first animated film. Why did you choose animation over live action?
Yeah, for this film, from the very beginning, like when we first started writing the script, I could only picture it as being animated, and specifically like hand drawn animation. I felt like that was the best medium to tell this story through because of how personal hand drawn animation is. It's just a relationship between the artist and the paper, or the artist and the tablet if it's done digitally. Like there's such a connection there that I felt like would represent the connection of the characters in the film beautifully and kind of tie that in a way. And also because the film has no dialogue, we felt like animation, you can use it in a very like poetic way to where you don't need the characters to say anything, but yet they say so much through their just the performances and the expressions and the little details you're able to get through hand drawn um, is really powerful. So
Yeah.
I think that was like those were the main reasons. And also like I've been obsessed with animation like my whole life. I went to school for live action directing, but in the back of my mind, I always knew like I wanted to like eventually direct an animated project at some point. And so Two Ships just felt like the first script that we had that felt like, okay, this needs to be told through animation.
Well, one of the things that I loved about this film, and because like you just said earlier, there's a simplicity to it, and with an animated shorts are different than a live action short because live action shorts can go 10, 15, 20, 25 minutes. Animated shorts really don't have to be that long. I mean, like your 6.5 minutes. I've seen some maybe go past the 10-minute mark, but you can tell a full story with animation. Probably, I'm not going to say it's easier, but with the way that you created this film, it is an absolute complete story. Now, I love the way you seamlessly integrated the night and the day with Mason and Sam. Such a brilliant move. I mean, and the way you crisscross their lives, like you said, in the same frame, but still maintained a sense of separation or the absence of one another. Again, it was just simply brilliant. Now, I noticed the little things like Mason washing the dishes before he heads to work, leaving a little note for Sam, like you alluded to. So, Mackenzie, did McKinley do things like that? So, when you woke up, there were certain things that were already done?
Yeah, totally. McKinley's very thoughtful. He's also very type A. And that was something that when we first moved in together, we were like, because when you're long distance, you learn how to communicate with each other, you get into a rhythm. And then when you come together, you figure out your differences and how they connect. And
Yeah.
we had to kind of figure that out. But yeah, he would totally clean up after me and leave me sweet little sticky notes. And we've saved a few, but even when we were long distance, we had this journal that we would mail back and forth to each other, or next every time we saw each other in person, we'd hand to each other and leave little handwritten notes. And that's what we put our wedding vows in. And we're very sentimental people, and especially with handwritten things and postcards, and so we
Yeah.
wanted to incorporate that. But yeah, he's a big softie for sure.
And that book is cool because it's a time capsule, that little journal that we pass back and forth. It's a time capsule because it has stuff from like 2015 all the way up until now. And so yeah, it's really cool to be able to have that and to one day like, eventually show our kids. And same with this movie, Two Ships, it is a time capsule of a point in our lives. And like thinking about the fact that like we'll be able to show our family that decades from now, the film will still live on. And I think that's really special. And that's something that like, it's like one of the, my favorite things about filmmaking is like you're creating these things that will have lives beyond you. So
Well, there was something that I noticed in the film, and I'm not sure if it's something that both of you did, but I wondered. So there was a chess set on the coffee table. Did you two play chess by making one move at a time in each other's absence?
I'm definitely more of the chess player. I've
He's tried
tried
to
to
teach me.
teach Mackenzie how to play, but it's funny you noticed that because there was actually like a version of the
Yeah.
scene where the characters are in the living room instead of like each one like turning on the TV and like you see that like divide between them. They were actually going to do like one chess move at a time and like have an ongoing game throughout the week, even though they're like not there. You'd see them playing at the same time. And we had a version of the scene where it was something like that, and we felt like it. I don't know. It just didn't work as well.
Yeah.
So we left the chessboard in there as just like decor in the environment, but.
Because in our house, it is kind of more decor than actually playing.
Yeah,
But
it has a lot of dust on it, but it does sit on our coffee table.
but it's pretty.
Well, yeah, but I can understand how complicated, because in a way it pulls from the storyline, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, it would just get a little
A
too
distracting.
complex for no reason, and we felt like it was much more poignant to have these two characters like sit down on the couch and like look over at each other and then see that the other person isn't there, but like you can tell that they're wishing that the other person was there or like longing for them to be there. And then that like felt like it would seamlessly transition into sort of like what we called this the swing sequence, where the characters like it goes to black and white and the characters are in this sort of like metaphorical like surreal space away from reality where they're like trying to find each other. And yeah, so we did have a chess version, but that got quickly scrapped, and I think we found something that fit a little bit better like thematically and also just wasn't as like too complicated.
Well, what I loved was, because the way the film starts out, you have this beautiful color palette, and when it goes to the black and white with both of them on the swings, because you took the words right out of my mouth, because it was basically a metaphor for space and time. And and you felt it when you watched the film, because it was to me it was a perfect element to place within the film, because then you come back to the color at the end. So it just wasn't the same, but from beginning to end, you actually kind of had this cool animated break that really had quite a bit of movement because of the swings. So I just love the way that you did that.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, that's totally credit to our animation director, Ala. She animated pretty much that entire swing sequence herself, and we had I think like 3 or 4 storyboards for that 40-second scene. We knew kind of where it should start and the middle of it, and then the end. But then we gave those storyboards to her, and she really like put her own spin on it, and she sent us back a draft within like a week, which is very quick for animation for a 40-second shot. And we were just blown away. We really had like no notes.
Yeah.
She absolutely killed it with that scene, and it was a little scary because that scene is like sort of the emotional climax for the film, and so we knew it had to like elicit a certain emotion and a certain response. And so when it came time to like animate that sequence, we were like, "Ooh, I hope we can like pull it off." Like a lot rides on this moment, and when she sent back the draft, the first draft, we like were very like, okay, we're gonna open it up, open the file, and like fingers crossed, this looks okay. And it was amazing, and it like blew us away. So yeah, total credit to Ala and our artists, and they all understood the assignment.
Yeah, and the music for that section too was kind of the same idea, like, or same thing ended up happening. We were really nervous because for us it was a really important part, and Zach and Mason, our composers, did an incredible job. They showed us that was the only part of the whole production that we got to experience in person because they're also based in Atlanta. And so we were sitting in the room with them and they pressed play and we were all kind of like, oh, what's going to happen? And it was so perfect and beautiful. We got chills. And for us, it was like the perfect balance of this longing and the melancholy, but they're hopeful and they love each other. It was just such a perfect way to share that scene. So, and the sound design on top of it, like every part of the filmmaking process for that sequence was like so perfect. We couldn't have asked for it to gone.
Everybody was like, performing out of 10 in that scene when we needed them to, and so that was like amazing as the director and producer to witness like your team, like you give them the guidelines and you just hope for the best, and you can give notes and encouragement and kind of like refine along the way. But then when they get it in the first go and like all the different aspects get it right the first time, you're just like, this is amazing. And
Yeah.
that's what's so amazing about animation and like how collaborative it is, because like everybody is working to like elevate the film together. So yeah.
Well, I love the beautiful music score because it just brings a surreal feeling to the whole story as well as the animation. Uh, so that leads me to a question because when I'm talking to filmmakers that do live action, they're either going to go by storyboard or they're going to go by a shot list.
Mm-hmm.
With animation, how do you do a storyboard because you're still drawing it? So
Right.
what's the actual difference between animating, creating an animated movie, but you have a storyboard? Where's the difference?
Yeah, that's a great question. The storyboard was everything. The storyboard was our blueprint. Like once we had the script locked, we spent a lot of time on the storyboard to make sure all the shot compositions of every shot were, exactly how we needed them to be. Because then we took those storyboards and we, you know, put them into our editing software and created an animatic. So it's basically like the storyboards in motion with like temp sound and temp score, so that we could get like the exact pacing of the film and how long each of the storyboards, how long each shot needs to be before we go into production, because we need to know, like, to our animators, this shot has to be 7 seconds, this shot has to be 6 seconds, because we already know like that's exactly how long it needs to be in the edit for the pacing to feel right. And so yeah, as a live action filmmaker, like coming into animation, it's a little bit backwards of how I'm used to working, because I'm used to working like you shoot a bunch of coverage, you shoot more than you need, so that you have a lot of wiggle room in the edit, and you're able to like piece it together and find things in the edit. You're not able to do that in animation. You're not able to just shoot coverage, because you're creating the environment. Like every little thing in the frame is created, and is, a lot of thought goes into
And
it.
you're asking your artist to spend more time and energy doing something that might just be cut. How
Yeah,
what's the equivalent of the timing of like one
yeah.
second of
No, it was like
animation?
1 minute of animate. Like the general rule of thumb is like 1 minute of hand drawn animation would take one artist 1 month. So that's the general rule. We had three animators or four animators, and so, and obviously like they were working other projects and other jobs while working two ships. It's a independent,
Yeah.
independent passion project. So we didn't expect them to be full time with us, and we were working our day jobs while making the film. And like I said, it took almost 4 years from start to finish to create. So but yes, the storyboards were everything. That was definitely the blueprint. We spent a lot of time with our storyboard artist Gaia to make sure everything was solid.
Yeah, I giggled at first because McKinley initially drew the storyboards and they're very stick figure heavy,
Yeah.
and like definitely we needed to hire an artist to help us translate what we were envisioning and then work with our animators to go from there. But yeah.
So how did you come up with the style of the animation?
Yeah, it was a long conversation. Well, we started with the characters because we knew the film really just centers around these two people, and we need to know what they look like. What is their design going to be? So we spent a lot of time with our original character designer, who also did the storyboards, Gaia, and we just talked about inspirations. We drew a lot of inspirations from like the fine art world. Funnily enough, like we didn't look at a ton of animation to get reference for the character designs. We looked at like Alex Katz, his like oil painting portraits, and we just loved how like the features of the face were rendered, and they were like a little minimal, but they were still realistic, but like a nice balance of like realism and like exaggeration.
Yeah.
So it was a lot of like conversation and collaboration and experimentation, all the Asians. Yeah, so yeah, then we started with the character designs, and then once we felt like we had like those kind of locked in, then we went to the environment design and sort of the layout of these characters' apartment, which was a little easier for us because we drew inspiration from our first apartment together. We knew we wanted these characters to exist in an environment that meant something to us and that reflected our like personal lives and our journey.
Felt like our space too.
Yeah.
And because we were living in like a 500 square foot apartment with another person as well. So we were sharing this very small space. And I think that added to the story too of it's one environment, but it does feel a little tight and you're having to work together to navigate these spaces. And yeah, sorry,
Yeah.
didn't mean to.
No, you're good. And so, yeah, we worked with our art director, Priya, to do like the early concept art for the layout of the apartment. And then, yeah, once we got further along into production, we created like a bunch of PowerPoint presentations of like what each prop, like what the spatula should look like, what color should the spatula be, like the design of it, the texture of every object in their space, and also their wardrobe and what color that should be. And then figuring out what color should things look like in the day and the night, because we had to paint each background twice. We had to have our background painter, Leah, do a version in nighttime color palette and daytime color palette for every single background. So that was also a little time consuming, but it was something that was going to, help us tremendously in post-production.
Well, both of you understand. Well, McKinley, you understand the color palette when it comes to live action film. And Mackenzie, you understand a color palette when it comes to photography. So in this case, what type of color palette did you use?
Yeah, we used what is pretty much called a complementary color palette, complementary color scheme, which is like, in our case, it was blue and yellow. And so we knew that like in the nighttime, Mason's color palette would be very cool tones, darker tones to reflect his time of day. And then in the daytime, Sam's color palette would be much more warm and bright and sort of like a white, yellow, orangish glow to it. And we knew that these colors, blue, yellow, blue, orange are like very common, like complementary colors together. But in this case, it was very story driven that it needed to be that way. Yeah. And also, each of the characters' color palettes kind of reflect our own personal taste. Like my personal taste is like cooler, darker tones, and yours is the opposite. And if you looked at our apartment, like you'd see it's kind of a nice blend of the two. And so, yeah, we brought ourselves and our preferences into that decision as well.
And something with the color too, I was very particular about not wanting like the blues to lean too purple or lean too green, or we wanted it to feel very blue and very like neutrals for her. We didn't want her to be too yellow. We wanted it to be really realistic.
And there's like pops of pink and gold and like all of those things that like.
And there's greens throughout, but it's the greens is more the environment, and the whites and the brights and the yellows are her, and the blues are him, and trying to make sure they don't mix too much to where you're confused. We want it to be
where it becomes too muddy.
Yeah.
We wanted to keep the like separation and the blending like very distinct.
Well, the scene that perfectly explains that is when Mason had just finished washing the dishes before leaving for work. You still have him standing there. Sam comes around the corner and she moves in front of him. So she still has her light of the day moving in front of him. Was that scene a little bit complicated to create because of that effect?
Yeah, I think all of the shots where the two characters are overlapping and their sort of light trails are like following them and overlapping, those were all shots that took a lot of time in post-production, like in the compositing phase. Our compositor Luis was amazing with us, and we did a lot of work with him over video calls where he would share his screen and give us a ton of options. Like, okay, he's going to pass by at this speed, and there's going to be this much of the nighttime or the daylight like blooming out from them. Is that too much? Like, is it too soft around the edges, or should it like kind of blend in more? And so there was like all of these conversations that we were having to like get that effect right, because we had to create the effect. It's not just like a stock effect that he was able to like plug in and throw on and like, oh, it works nice. Like he had to like create all of that and blend the characters with the two different backgrounds, with the shadows, with the lighting, with the texture on top of everything. and just brought so much life to it.
And we were afraid, not afraid, but like our concern was that people were going to think one of them is dead. And we didn't want them to think that. We wanted them to think, no, they're both here. They're both in this space and they belong here, but
And
at different
they have
times.
each have effects on their environment. Like that was important to us, that where they walk, they're affecting and their light is spilling on the environment around them. And also like there was a time where we thought, oh, maybe they would like pass through each other and like have some sort of like transparency or translucency as they do that. But then that would also kind of get into the thing of like, oh, maybe one of them's dead, or that maybe they're both dead, and we didn't want any.
Yeah, I would. Yeah, I agree with that because I would have never done that. And the other thing is too is, did you ever have audience members think that maybe because the way it starts out, because not everybody reads the log line. So with the film, did they think that maybe this couple had a relationship problem?
I think there's been a few different interpretations that we've heard after screenings, but it seems to the consensus is like they're really intrigued and they're trying to like figure out what's going on, what's going on with these two people. But then when it comes to the scene where they are on the couch together and they're looking at each other and reveals that they're not there, like that seems to be the light bulb moment for most people.
If they haven't got it.
If they haven't.
But
already,
I thought the note that he wrote in the kitchen, because when you look at her reaction when she reads it, there's this little smile on her face. So I'm like, yeah, there's not a problem here.
Yeah.
And that's what that was a hard point for us because we lived this story for so long. I was like, is this too on the nose? Like, is this giving away the story? But then we've heard some reactions of like, oh, I didn't get it till the couch. I was like, okay, great. We weren't giving the story away, but maybe just leading them there. And
it was definitely an exercise throughout the writing process of like, okay, are we being too subtle? Like at what point is it too subtle or is it not subtle enough? And like finding the balance, because we, especially with something that's like doesn't have any dialogue and is told it just all completely visually, we needed to make sure that it still made sense. But I don't know, the movies that we love are the ones that like don't hit you over the head and are just really subtle and poetic. And so we hoped to capture that same feeling with Two Ships.
Well, you did, and there's also something that you did that I really loved, and I didn't catch it until the third time that I watched it to the very end. So at the very end, when the camera pans out to the ocean and you see the two boats, I didn't get it until the very end because they never cross. So, we always hear the saying, the two ships cross in the night, or, that phrase, but then they just barely, they just come together and they sit together. And I thought, oh, that was perfect.
Thank you.
So it wasn't two ships passing in the night. So,
right. Yeah, no, that was like in our first draft of the script was, I think we had written out like the boats or the two ships approach each other and like float in front of each other. And like, that was an image that was like in my head from the beginning, and really knew that the film would end there. Maybe I didn't know like how we were going to get to that point at that time when we were first starting writing, but I knew like, okay, that's where it has to end. So I'm glad that you picked up on it. And that's really cool because, it was like kind of our sort of North Star of like, okay, this is where we're going to end up. And so we just need to get to that point.
Yeah.
Because we knew that like it had a meaning, and maybe it's not something that you consciously are aware of like the first time, but even subconsciously, like I feel like there's something there.
So. And I think there's something like,
no, go ahead, Mackenzie.
Sorry, we have them like we've been in this space with them, this tight space with them, and then we go out and we're into the world and we're reminded, oh, they're just one of many people that are on this space that might be experiencing the same thing or something different. And we wanted to zoom out and not just end with them, to remind everybody, the collective, like we're all just kind of here together and we're sharing these different lives and
we're all sharing the same ocean,
Yeah.
Well, the thing about the ending shot too that I loved, and I didn't really get it till now, as I hear you talking about the color palette. When you see the ending shot, now I can truly see why you studied various forms of art because I can see that in the last shot because you have more of the color come through. So if you just took that one shot alone, let's say you have Mason and Sam in the corner and they're looking out, that alone, you could just take that and frame it.
Oh, well, thank
Thank
you.
you.
That
It's our
was our,
artists.
yeah, credit to our background painter, Leah. I think that was maybe one of the first shots she painted was like the ending
Mhm.
frame. Um, and yeah, that was one of our hopes early on in development was with talking to Leah was like, okay, we really want to make sure that like outside of the context of this short film, we'd really love each of these backgrounds to feel like an individual piece of art that we would want to potentially frame in our apartment, or that would just exist on its own and still just be a piece of art. And so and she's so talented and such an amazing artist. Like
We felt
she
so lucky to have her. When
yeah
she agreed to work with us, we were so elated. It was, yeah, we were
because
so
we had
excited.
seen some of her work and her backgrounds. She painted backgrounds for the Malala documentary. There's like some animated sequences in that documentary that we watched, and we were just
So
like,
beautiful.
"This is amazing!" And so we stalked her IMDb and like reached out to her that way. That's how we found a lot of our artists. We were just constantly consuming films and documentaries and animation, and we were just okay, who worked on this, and let's go find their email and like reach out to them and see if they're interested. And yeah, 90% of our team was recruited that way. So
Yeah.
I live on IMDb, so I know exactly what you're talking about because when I went to the website, uh, this film is literally a global project. 15 animators, is that correct?
we had
15 artists.
four animators and then 15 artists total, but they were located around the world. We had artists in Portugal, Poland, France, the UK, and then several states in the US. Am I forgetting any? Is that all of them?
I don't think
I think that's
so.
all of them. But then, yeah, also six different time zones. And since this film was done virtually, like there were many times where we'd be waking up at 5 a.m. to get on a call with our artists, or you know 10 p.m., 11 p.m. our time, getting on with our colorist David and like giving him notes on shot as he's sharing his screen, and like, is this shadow too strong, and like, okay, let's dial that down a little bit. So
And so many emails.
thousands of emails back and forth for years. So yeah, I mean, we were really lucky because for one, like we didn't think, because this is our first animated project, we really have no like uh, clout to kind of be like, hey, this is what we've done in the past, would you want to
Right.
come work with us? So we just really went off the story, and I think a lot of our artists could connect with the story and see themselves in it and wanted to be a part of it that way, and trusted us, which we're so grateful that they did. And I think that they're all proud of their work, and that's what makes me so happy as a
Yeah.
director, is that all of our artists and animators really feel like proud of what they contributed.
Well, a lot of animators that I've talked to, that it's their first film, and so yours took 4 years, and I've heard stories where I think 10 months to 2 years is probably average for an animated film.
Yeah, that's about right. We thought that we were gonna at the beginning. We thought this was gonna be done in less than a year. So, things happen. Obviously, like everybody's working other jobs too. So there's delays, and there was changeover, and people had to exit the project because they got a higher paying gig. Which we were like, go for it. We totally understand, and we'd have to find replacements and things like that. So there were setbacks along the way. It definitely took longer than either of us expected, but it was it was a project that we didn't get tired of working on. This was the longest project that either of us had been on, like for a single project, and for somehow like we didn't get bored or tired of it ever. So that was the motivation for us to keep going, because we were like, okay, we feel like we have something here if we're not sick of it yet. So let's keep
Yeah,
going.
and also you don't know what you don't know. So we were learning as we were going and realizing, oh, we were so naive. We didn't know this. And I say now, if we knew everything it took to make this film in 2021, we would have been so intimidated and so anxious about it. I think we would have been too scared. So I'm just thankful to 2021 us for just going for it, and
Yeah.
having a little bit of being naive to say, oh, we can figure this out. We can do it, because we could do it. And we just, we didn't know, but
Yeah, but it's
so
the
excited.
experience you've gained.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not like doing a live action short and you're like, get a couple of actors and let's knock this out in 4 days.
Right. And that's what I was used to. I was used to like 4 or 5 day shoots, and come out with like a 15-minute project, maybe edit for like 6 months. And then after, 8 months total, you have a film. And so for this, it was like 4 times that. And so it was something that was new for me, was learning patience and learning to trust the process.
That was our motto.
That was our motto.
So what, for both of you, what was your emotion when you finally saw your film in a theater?
Yeah, it's still surreal. I mean, every time we see it in the theater, it's still surreal. It's like, first of all, we can't believe that it's done, because we lived with the project for so long that it felt like we were just like, we didn't know what our life was like outside of working on it. So once it was done, it was like, wow, it's done. That's so crazy. And then 2, it's just like, it's such a personal story. And in my past films, like, they haven't meant this much, or like have been this personal or this vulnerable in a way. So to see that on a screen and in a theater, and to watch other people watch it, it's just unbelievable. It's so surreal. And I just get so grateful every time.
I've never made a film, so this is my first time, seeing something that we worked on, and I know everything that went into the process. I know the story. I know all the reasons why we did everything, but I was sitting in the theater realizing, like, none of these people have any idea that we just spent 4 years of our lives, and all the conversations and all the people that made it. And so it does. I had so much anxiety the first time. The real honest first time we were in the theater, it was to test the sound and make sure that it worked. And we were at our local
at the Plaza Theater in Atlanta, if you're familiar. Theater. Yeah.
We love the Plaza.
Our friend Rocco, who had like made the DCP to like test in the theater to make sure like the surround sound and picture, everything was good. He threw it on the screen, and we just sat in the back, and we were like watching it. And there was like a band that was setting up, a live band for a performance, for a screening later that night. And they were setting up, they weren't being super loud, but at a certain point, like, I think like maybe 2 minutes into the film, they all just stopped and like sat down in the front row, and like stopped setting up the drums and the microphones, everything. They sat down, and we were just in the back, and we were like, whoa, this is crazy. Like they sat down, like they're watching it. This is crazy. And then after the film, like, they got up, and they didn't know we were there. They didn't know we're the filmmakers or anything. So they could have been like, man, this sucks. Like,
that's what I was like, waiting to hear their response. I was so nervous.
But we heard them like talking and like eavesdropping on them. And they're like, wow, that was really good. Like, wow, that was really good. And we were like, oh my gosh. Like,
no, we were so anxious to hear their response, because Rocco didn't tell anyone he was doing that. He just threw it on. And then the second time was in an actual theater with people. And then you're like, okay, they know that what they're here for. And we've heard snifflings, and people say, are you crying? And talking to each other and holding hands, and just seeing people and hearing people have real emotion to it has been really, really surreal. We still are trying to process everything.
It's a lot to process, but that was our goal for the film, was to, it's a film about connection. And so we wanted to inspire people to connect with that loved one after the film, or with that person, with that friend, whoever it is. And so to see people out of the corner of our eye, like, grab their partner's hand or grab somebody's hand that they're with, like, towards the end of the film, like, that means the world to us, because that was our goal when we set out to create this, was that moment is what we were after.
So how does it feel to be Oscar qualified?
Crazy.
It's crazy. It's been a whirlwind. Honestly, it's we had no expectations for this film when we started. We were really just focused on like making it and finishing it And then whatever happens after happens. And we started, submitting to festivals early, back at the beginning of this year. And we started the festival circuit in April. And since then, it's played at like 60 plus festivals and won awards, and then eventually getting Oscar qualified. It's just been unbelievable. It's totally exceeded our expectations, our team's expectations.
Yeah.
So it's been incredible. I mean,
just
we've been so grateful.
Yeah, our goal has just been no regrets. We want to make this movie. We want it to be as honest and true to us as possible. And so every film festival, everything after it was finally completed, we were like, let's just go for it. No regrets. And let's see what happens. And that's how we feel now being qualified. Like it would be so great if we could be shortlisted and continue this run. But if not, we're happy with everything.
It's already exceeded like where we thought it would go. So now everything else is just like, the cherry on top, extra gravy.
It's one of the best ones that I've seen in the animated category. How many animated films get qualified?
I think this year they had a 20% increase. So I think this year it's over 100. Last year it was, around 80. So I think this year it might be close to 110 that got qualified, which is great. I love to see that increase in independent animation. I mean, that's amazing. That's what I hope it just keeps increasing and increasing and growing, because I think with the success of Flow at the Oscars this year, and it winning big and beating out the big budget studio movies, was amazing. And it's gonna set a course for more artists and more animators from all over the world to pursue their art and to tell their stories.
Yeah, the one that won this year, Shadow of the Cypress.
Yeah.
Everybody knew. And it's rare when you get a film that kind of hits the circuit.
Yeah.
You just kind of know, you're like, there's no way they're going to lose this.
Yeah.
It's such a beautiful film, and the filmmakers are brilliant. We got to meet them recently in LA and talk with them, and they're such kind people.
Yeah.
And you can tell they're so talented. Like there's just like talent just kind of like oozing out of them. And that film is just so beautiful. So yeah.
But they have the craziest story.
It's such a crazy story. Yeah. We were talking to them about that, and they're like, yeah, everybody wants us to make a documentary about the making of the film. And I was like, yes. We would love to watch that. So
I want to see the documentary on the fact that they even got out of the country.
Yeah.
And showed up at the Oscars 3 hours before they won.
Such a crazy story.
Yeah.
I mean, oh my gosh. Yeah. It's amazing. It would
be because
documentary.
If you have, because last year I knew that there was about 80. So there's been about 100 this year. And with live action shorts, there's like 200.
Wow. What was the live action last year? Do you remember?
Yeah, I'm Not a Robot one.
Yeah. Oh no, I meant how many were qualified?
Last year I heard between 185 to 200 last year, because if you have 161 Oscar qualifying festivals, that usually means there's another 40 that are going to get qualified through the screening process.
Right. Okay.
So it all, and with live action shorts, it's so tougher because, see, like, as you know, with the animated shorts, most of the animated short, I don't even remember ever seeing an animated short go past 15 minutes.
Yeah, there's been some this year that are like maybe between 15 to 18 minutes. And they're all great, the ones that we've seen. But yeah, I think they tend to kind of run in that like 5 to 10 minute range.
Yeah, because and you and both of you really know how much work it takes, for 1 minute of an animated film. So it takes a lot of work, and I love seeing the 2D animation films win.
Yeah,
we do too.
We're
because
partial.
that's our favorite. That's what we grew up watching. That's what we were raised on, was the 2D traditional hand-drawn classics from Disney and from all the studios. Like that's what we grew up on. So that has informed our taste and our perception. But also like there's just something special about, you know, seeing that each of these frames individually are drawn like individual drawings. Because in Two Ships, like I think we have close to 4,500 individual drawings. Um, every frame was drawn by a person, and so that to us is like so special, um, you know, in its own way. And so that was really important to us, was to kind of carry the not carry the torch, but you know what I mean, like to continue that art form, that is hopefully going to have a resurgence and not get replaced by
Yeah,
AI or by computer generated animation.
completely.
So we wanted
Yeah,
to
I
return
think
to the.
I think AI is more dangerous for those dealing with 3D animation. And word just came out that Disney Pixar is going to go back and actually do a hand painted animated film.
Yeah,
Oh, wow, I
yeah,
didn't
I
know
saw
that.
that, and I was so excited to read that.
Wow, that's
That
really great.
that's incredible. I hope the rest of the animation studios follow suit, because it'd be great to see like another renaissance of
Yeah.
hand drawn 2D animated features. Yeah, I would love that, and I would be there with my dollars at the box office
Well,
to
my
support.
gosh, when you go back and look at what Disney was able to accomplish in the 40s and the 50s, they're still absolute perfect works of art.
It's
Yeah.
incredible. Yeah, I mean Snow White being like the first feature length animated film for Disney, and the fact that it still holds up and is still like so technically like, just it blows you away that what they were able to achieve at that time. And so, and
Yeah.
all shot, through film, like on glass, like that whole process was so time consuming. And it's just, yeah, it really is such a work of art.
Yeah, but we're a little partial to The Little Mermaid, though, having
Yeah.
Jodie as our executive producer and, knowing Glenn and Mark, and they're just incredible artists. And it's incredible that they had the renaissance of animation in the 80s and
Hmm.
early 90s, too.
Yep.
So, yeah, we're big 2D lovers in this
Yeah,
house.
it was kind of funny because last night I told my daughter, I go, "Do you know who Jodie Benson is?" And she looks at me, she goes, "The voice of Ariel." So she was freaking out on that. And so I was just like, okay, you actually know that. And this is absolutely incredible. So you already have a perfect team together now for the Oscar run.
We do. I mean, my mom Jody has been a huge support of the film, and she's an executive producer. She was one of the first people we showed the script to early on, and
Well, at
she,
first we didn't tell her it was animated. She was
yeah,
just like, "What are you working on? What's going on?" And I was like nudging McKinley, like, "You should tell her it's animated. It's kind of a big deal."
and when she found out it was animated, and then the fact that it's 2D, she was like, "How can I be a part of
Yeah,
this?
she
Like,
had the same response as me. I want to
I
be
want to be
part
part
of
of
it.
this. I want to help. Let me know." And so, yeah, and then the rest is history. So,
Yeah.
I love it. I love it. And I didn't bring up your mother Jody up in the interview for a reason, because both of you can stand on your own 2 feet, and this is all about you and your incredible film. So that's one reason why I didn't do that. So because you have basically submitted your mark in the world of animation with this film, Two Ships. And ladies and gentlemen, Two Ships. This is an intimate slice of life tale following Mason and Sam, a couple madly in love but divided by space and time. Sam works a typical day job while Mason works overnights. They live together but lead vastly separate lives, rarely crossing paths like two ships passing in the night. However, in their few spare moments at home while the other partner is still sleeping, Sam and Mason manage to find ways to connect and show affection even during their difficult circumstances. In doing so, their love seems to transcend space and time, blurring the lines between reality and fantasy. Two Ships celebrates the beauty of the mundane and chronicles the challenges of navigating an opposite shift relationship, one that is not often depicted in cinema. This is the type of animated short that not only wins awards, but it could very well go all the way to Oscar night. And for both of you, I want to thank you so much for sharing this incredible animated short with me today.
Thank you so
Thank you
much,
for
Ward. We
having us.
appreciate this opportunity. It was great chatting with you and hope to do it again soon.
Oh, you have an open invitation. And ladies and gentlemen, you can catch all of the Bondon Cinema interviews at bondoncinema.com. Check out our Prime show, our YouTube channel, and you can listen to us on Spotify, iTunes, Audible, and more. And remember, you'll either see me at the movies or from the red carpet.